Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Curseof and welcome back to another video. Today we are back for another Yugi-Kaiba video here for Yugi-Kaiba week. And today's topic of discussion is going to be some common errors or common mistakes that new players make in Yugi-Kaiba format. So, those of you who are watching this video are either going to be people who play Yugi-Kaiba format, and maybe you're seeing if I miss anything, you know, seeing if I mess up, like, I don't know, maybe the fact that I messed up and put block attack in my deck instead of stop defense. Whoops. But the other option is that you guys are brand new to the game. Maybe you've seen my Blue Eyes deck profile and you went ahead and net decked it. Maybe you've seen a deck profile posted by Yugi, you net decked that. Or maybe you dropped into the Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy Discord, found their first place deck list there, and net decked that. You went ahead, took it into, Yugi-Kaiba match, and you lost. And you're like, well, these are good decks, but I feel like I had no chance. What was going on there? Well, allow me to go over some common errors that new players are going to make in this format and help you guys potentially become better. Before I get into the video, I want to tell all you guys that if you have absolutely no idea what the hell Yugi-Kaiba format is and you're just popping in because the video was uploaded on my channel, check the cards right now. You guys will see a video called The Basics on Yugi-Kaiba format. This will give you a rundown on how the format works, what cards are used, and all of the like. So check out that video before watching this one. Anyway, let's get into it. So, the first thing that I'm going to focus on here for talking to you guys about, where you can improve here is that this format is all about one-for-ones. Every card you run in your deck is either a potential plus or it is a one-for-one. There may be a couple Neg Ones in the deck, but they're very, very powerful, and because of that, it's okay that they're a Neg One. But the majority of your deck is going to be centered around one-for-ones, and that is extremely, extremely important. So I guess before I go any further, I should explain to you guys what I mean when I say Neg One. And the best scenario I'm going to give you guys is, say your opponent is coming in, they're attacking you with a Lajin. Alright? You flip up your Waboku, so you don't take any damage, but Waboku hits the grave. Well, you spent your Waboku, you didn't out any of your opponent's monsters or any of your opponent's cards, so you went Neg 1 off that Waboku, meaning you lost one card advantage in order to do the move that you just did. This is a Neg 1, and these are the scenarios that we actually want to avoid as often as possible within the format. So looking at a standard beat deck list here, I will bring it up on one of the sides of me. You guys will notice that there's only 3 cards in this deck that are going to be inherently a Neg 1. These cards being the 2 copies of Swords of Revealing Light, because you activate Swords, you stall for 3 turns, but then Swords goes to grave, so it is inherently a Neg 1. And then we have Card Destruction. Because you have to activate Card Destruction, ditch your entire hand, and you get to draw as many cards as you had after you activated Card Destruction, meaning that Card Destruction itself is your Neg 1. So these 2 cards are both inherently one less card in your hand, one less card advantage over your opponent, but they have very, very strong properties. For example, Card Destruction potentially ripping powerful cards of your opponent's hand, or Swords Revealing Light just stalling. So these are the exceptions to the Neg 1 scenario that you want to avoid in the format, but every other card here is not inherently a Neg 1. Starting off here, we have our beat sticks. We have Lajin, Neo, and Battleox. Killing things are perfect because you get to go plus every time you kill something. You have walls, which means your opponent can't kill them, so they can't go plus off of killing things. You have Maneater Bug. If your opponent kills a Maneater, it flips up, outs one of your opponent's monsters. You go 1-for-1, same thing with Trapmaster. These are all very, very standard, inherent 1-for-1s, and or potentially plus ones if you're just killing your opponent's monsters. And I'm sure everyone playing Yugi-Kaiba format understands that. Where some of you guys might start to mess up in the whole one-for-one logic is more than anything in Waboku and reinforcements. I see a lot of people new to the format spending these trap cards like it's just a free little tool, as if it's a skill card, we'll say. You get to go ahead, your opponent attacks you, and you say, okay, I'll flip up my Waboku and I won't take your Lajin damage or your Battle Ox damage. Unless that damage is going to kill you that turn, 99 times out of 100, you do not make that play. Waboku is a potential 1-for-1 against your opponent, so wasting it in a scenario where you're just stopping yourself from taking damage is not the power play that you make with this card. Where you're going to use Waboku is if your opponent is swinging into your monster, maybe Neo Crash, you flip up Waboku, all of a sudden you went 1-for-1 because your Neo can no longer be killed, theirs can, so you spent a Waboku to out your opponent's Neo. That's how you have to treat this card. I see too many people just flipping this up and saying, I'm not going to take any damage. That cannot be your mindset when playing Waboku at all, unless you're at that point where you're like, okay, I might die here. But if that's not the case, then you don't want to use Waboku just to stop yourself from taking battle damage here. Life points is a resource, spend it. Unless you're going up against Burn, then you can justify using Waboku to stop damage, but you're very rarely going to see Burn. So 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, you're going to flip up Waboku, either to go 1-for-1 with Waboku, or to say, hey, I'm not dying this turn. The other one I mentioned was reinforcements, and it is the exact same scenario. You're going in for a crash, your opponent's trying to go over your Neo with a Lajin, and you activate reinforcements, buffing your monster up to be bigger, and you get to go ahead and go 1-for-1, trading reinforcements for a whatever monster you were just able to beat over. I see some people activating reinforcements in order to deal extra damage. This is not how you play this. If you play Waboku to stop damage and you play reinforcements to deal more damage, you're treating these cards as Neg Ones. And if that's the way you're going to play them in the format, you may as well just cut them from your deck, because they have no real use if you can't try to keep advantage or just out problematic monsters your opponent has using these cards. They're 1-for-1s, and they need to be treated as such. The next card I'm going to mention that some people tend to misplay a little bit here is the Trap Hole card. Trap Hole is very, very powerful. It is a 100% 1-for-1. They're going to normal summon a monster. You're going to flip this up, and it is always going to be a 1-for-1 in this format using Trap Hole. But the issue is that a lot of people don't know exactly what they should hit with a Trap Hole. Well, obviously there's different scenarios. Sometimes you might want to hit something that you normally wouldn't hit. Maybe it's important. Maybe you're just getting beat down. You need to stop this monster. You need to out this. Maybe your opponent can go for game, so you need to stop a giant soldier of stone, for example. But normally, you want to use Trap Hole to out either tribute summons, or you want to out Lajin. Your opponent only has 3 Lajins in their deck, only 3 1800 beat sticks. As soon as you can take care of their 1800 beat sticks, and you're the only one left with those, you are in the driver's seat. You are the pilot. You want to be there as fast as possible. You want to out their Lajin every single time. If your opponent normal summons a Lajin, and you have a Trap Hole, bam, do it. Trap Hole. Bye-bye. Unless you have like a board wipe and you're preparing to board wipe your opponent's board in the following turn. But most of the time, you want to Trap Hole a Lajin as soon as that thing hits the field, because that is like your primary Trap Hole target. That is exactly what you want to go for. A lot of times, actually, you want to try and bait out your opponent's Trap Holes, normal summoning Neo or normal summoning Battle Ox over a Lajin, and that is another mistake that a lot of new players will make. They won't save their Lajins in their hand, they won't keep them protected, and they'll just throw them out right away. You're going second, and you're like, I don't Lajin, and then it gets Trap Holed, and you're like, oh well, whatever, man. Kind of something you want to avoid, especially going first here, and you have a a Lajin and a Neo chilling in your hand, and say your opponent has a set monster, normal summon Neo. That's probably a Man-Eater bug. It's not a Trap Master, because that's a bad play. Maybe it's a Hane, or maybe your opponent has a set Trap Hole. You want to try and get rid of these effects that are going to out your Lajin with your 1700 beat sticks. Yes, they're good, but they're nowhere near as good as Lajin. That extra 100 attack points is extremely, extremely relevant. So you want to try and protect your Lajins as best you can. So both these are some big common misplays that people are going to make around Trap Hole. You really want to save your Trap Holes for your opponent's Lajin, and you want to try to play around losing your Lajin. When your opponent loses a lot of removal, or if you need to go Lajin, that's different. Or if you feel comfortable going Lajin, maybe they don't have any back row, that's different. But you still want to try to hold on to those Lajins and protect them from the removal. Another very, very common misplay for someone brand new to the format, and something that they don't really understand why you need to go about doing this, is setting your spell cards. There's no quick play spells, so you're probably, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, well, why am I going to set my spell cards? What does that offer for me? Well, if you do not set your spell cards on the field, you are, one, making your traps more susceptible to a very, very commonly played monster like Trap Master, and two, you are making your Power 5, your power spells, very susceptible to card destruction. You are a lot more likely to use your powers to lose your power spells due to card destruction than you are to de-spell. Not many more seasoned players are going to just blind de-spell. A lot of times they'll Trap Master, target, see if they hit a right target or a spell card. If they hit the wrong target, then they de-spell that target. And that is assuming they even run de-spell in their main deck. A lot of the players don't run de-spell in the main deck. Maybe they side deck it if their opponent has a lot of spells, but don't main it, and if they do, you normally only see it at 1. So setting spell cards is actually very, very powerful. I mean, if you guys did watch my first replay, if you haven't, check out the cards. But if you have, you guys will have noticed that I actually card destructioned and outed both my opponent's board wipes, I think, into game 3 of my very first match, which is amazing. And if he set those, he wouldn't have had to worry about losing those at all, which is absolutely huge. So setting spells, very, very powerful, very, very good to do. Something that new players basically just don't do because they don't see the reasoning behind it. Speaking of powerful spells, let's move on to some common misplays with some of the Power 5. Starting off here with Monster Reborn. Monster Reborn, target one monster out of the graveyard, special summon it. Fairly easy effect, very powerful effect, but you have to know when to use it. You don't just, bam, Monster Reborn, okay. That's not how you do it. You don't just spend Monster Reborn to summon Lajin. You don't just spend it to summon a Neo from the grave unless you're going for game, say in one of those scenarios, and Monster Reborn is your access to game. You want to save Monster Reborn for bigger monsters. Maybe your opponent's playing Dragon Caller and you can revive their Blue Eyes, or your Summon Skull just hit the graveyard, or you can combo Monster Reborn off with your card destruction to drop a big monster, revive it, and then use it to potentially go for game. A lot of new players you might see pop Monster Reborn to summon back a wall, maybe, or summon back a beat stick early on just so they have it. And yes, if you are in a dire situation that is your only play, please feel free to use Monster Reborn there. But this is not advanced. You don't want to just summon your Monster Reborn to create a bigger board presence or to link summon. We don't have link summoning. This is Yugi-Kaiba format, guys. Calm down. No, you want to save this for a power play, and you want to save it to potentially overwhelm your opponent. Especially since Trap Hole only stops normal summons, so if you can guarantee get a monster out with Monster Reborn, it is a special summon, obviously, cannot be Trap Holed, and it can actually potentially guarantee you game unless they have Wabaku, which is amazing. So Monster Reborn, very, very powerful. Obviously helps you spam it on the field and makes monsters not susceptible to Trap Hole. So important card to use, but has to be used correctly. Alright, so went over a lot of stuff, most of it was minor. Some of it was kind of major. For example, going Neg off Wabaku and reinforcements. I think it's a very major misplay. But here's the other big misplay that new people to the format are going to make. And this is over-committing. If you're coming from Advanced or really any format, you think, I want to build a big board. I want to have as many monsters out as I can. I just want to overwhelm my opponent and win. In most forms of Yu-Gi-Oh, this is true. In Yugi-Kaiba format, this is far from true. That's why a card like that of Ultimate Offerings isn't amazing, because spamming the field with monsters doesn't actually do a lot in this format. In fact, the bigger field you build, the more susceptible you are to a Dark Hole or a Raigeki. A lot of times your opponent is waiting for you to build a big board. It is like their dream, their fantasy that you are going to overcommit, have a huge board, and they are going to go super plus off one of their board wipes. This is something that new players just don't quite get right away. And once you do bring up the board wipes to them and the fact that every deck plays them, it's not hard to understand why you don't want to overcommit. But as a new player, it's very easy to just say, okay, well, let me set this. Okay, and my turn, I have a normal summon. Let me normal summon this. Okay, my turn, I have another normal summon. Okay, let me set this. Okay, let me summon this. Now you have 4 monsters on board, and your opponent says, well, you've been doing a really good job beating me down, but, Dark Hole. Well. That just got awkward, didn't it? You basically cannot overcommit to your board in this format until you have seen Dark Hole and you have seen Raigeki hit the grave. If this is not the case yet, then you do not overcommit to your board yet. Dark Hole and Raigeki are played in every single deck. They are just board wipes. They destroy every single monster. And it's just too powerful of a card to not play around. You play this format assuming your opponent has both board wipes in hand until you see them in the grave. In fact, these board wipes are why Wicked Worm Beast is such a good card, because it plays around these board wipes. So you don't want to overcommit to your board. Yes, there are some niche scenarios where maybe you can go for game, or maybe you feel like you really need that third monster. Maybe you're playing around Fissure instead of a board wipe by having a low attack monster on field. Yes, it is okay sometimes, but 90% of the time, going over 2 monsters is getting kind of risque, and you kind of want to avoid that. So, overcommitting to your board, big misplay. So, this is my little 2 cents on common mistakes that new Yugi-Kaiba players tend to make. Hopefully now that you guys have watched this video, if you are brand new to the format, you can go ahead and take my Blue Eyes deck, take a standard beat deck, take whatever deck, run off into some Yugi-Kaiba duels, and win. By the way, if you're looking for a really good place to play Yugi-Kaiba, Format Library will be linked down below. They have a ranked section for Yugi-Kaiba format, and it is basically like the best place to go and play Yugi-Kaiba format in any competitive manner. Highly recommend checking them out, and yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button down below and also subscribe. I am dropping 2 Yugi-Kaiba videos every single day, and it means a lot to me that you guys support this content. It obviously motivates me to keep on doing what I'm doing. Anyway, that's a wrap, guys. I'll catch you guys all in a few hours and tomorrow for another Yugi-Kaiba video. Peace.